Hello, this is Teryl Chapel of City Planet Farms, and I'm here today to share with you my experience with designing and building a aquaponic edible green wall for Page Restaurant out in Sag Harbor. And I'm just going to use this as an opportunity to um, share and in a kind of an educational format my design and build process, in hopes that for those of you that are interested in designing, building, or even maintaining edible green walls in a restaurant setting, might get some value from my experience. So in the fall of 2013, I was approached by some folks that own a restaurant in Sag Harbor, Long Island, New York, and after I'd explained to them what I was involved with doing aquaponics and consulting and building small scale systems, they said, well, could you do something for our restaurant? And I said, well, let me come out and take a look. And I went out to visit and met with the owners. And this became really obvious that this wall would have to not only produce high quality, high value food, but it's in a restaurant, it's going to have to look good all the time. And so what I did is I met with these folks. I'm going to click over here to the next slide, and I'm going to show you. There's two photos of the main atrium room at Page Restaurant. And when I met with the owners, we sat at this table in the middle of the room, and I listened to them explain their restaurant and what their values were as a restaurant, and what kind of food they wanted, and where they were going with their identity and their interaction with their community. And this is the phase that what I would call the initial client consultation. If any of you are going to be out there talking to people about the possibility of having a wall, edible green wall in their restaurant, the first thing I did when I sat down is I started looking around to see, number one, is it even possible in this situation? I mean, and not every situation is actually going to work. So first thing I wanted to do is I'm sitting here looking I'm going to go back to the slide and look at it. I'm looking in the room, and I'm looking over, and I look over, and if you look at the picture on the right, and right away I said, oh, there's a nice wall. And if you notice, this room has plenty of natural light. So that's one of the criteria. I think we're going to be able to grow food in here with the natural light. And we've got this nice wall. So there also happen to be electricity easily available. So right away, I see that we have some good possibilities. And so the next step for me was to listen closely to the client's expectations and to see if I'm going to be able to fulfill their expectations. Even though I'm pretty sure I can do something, is it going to really fit with what they want? And we talk about matching their budget and what their expectations are. And right away, I'm pretty clear about telling people that if you're expecting to save money on your produce, that's just probably not going to happen. So what other value is there in doing this project? And as a designer and a farmer, this is my opportunity to create value for what I do. And after listening to the clients and asking questions, I want to make sure that they understand that there is value in the wall. In this particular case, at Page, I saw right away that we could have a really beautiful design feature. Even if it wasn't producing food, it would be a nice wall. It would also incorporate aquariums and fish, because this is we were going to do an aquaponics wall here. And then is that going to be valuable to them? And yes, we were going to get food that would be able to be harvested and served on the menu. And yet I really wanted them to understand that the production with this scale of this system was going to be modest. and they had to be okay with that. And the other thing that was really important, I needed them to understand is, and then sometimes people don't really realize, it's not like installing a piece of equipment that you plug it in and turn it on. It's going to require, ongoing daily maintenance by someone. So I'm going to just pause for a minute and see if there's any questions out there so far.
So, Terrell, what might restaurants typically value outside of the low-cost food? Are there certain things that you've found that they really strongly valued over others?
Yes, and the value for them was, as I listened to them, was that they were positioning themselves as a farm to table restaurant. They wanted to use that in their branding, in their marketing, in their identity. So it was important to them that they were going to be providing food, locally sourced food from local farmers. They wanted really fresh food, and they were really wanted to have highly nutritious food. So to be able to demonstrate on-site food production, even in a modest level, helped them move towards that goal of making a statement. And the other thing that was really of value to them was they wanted to have something different that nobody else had. And that was really at the top of the list. They wanted to be able to say, look, we've got this wall and nobody else has it for, miles around. And they were willing to, for them to potentially take a little risk, because at that time I couldn't show them another wall that was functioning, that was working. So I did have to convince them that I could pull it off and make it look good and make it work. Any other questions?
Yeah, one more for you. What hydroponic versus aquaponic green wall considerations might you want to think about in this initial client consultation phase? Do you have
That's a
to
good.
convince the client to go one way or another?
I don't think so. I mean, this was a real learning process for me as well. And I think every installation is, whether you're doing a greenhouse, or in this case, on-site restaurant. I think it's really important to understand that with aquaponics, having the added uh, addition of fish and fish tanks, that creates a whole nother added, uh, design set of challenges. Like I mentioned before, the biggest challenge for me, and I'm going to click into this next slide here, was I said we were going to go for the aquaponic because they were really into having the the recirculating system. They really wanted aquaponics, so they knew that. But it's really important that people know that that's an extra expense on the installation, and it requires an extra, time and on the maintenance side. And in the case of this wall, we were going to end up with, several aquariums that are, even just an aquarium, even though it's not an aquaponic system, requires, daily maintenance to keep it looking really great. And that's, putting something in a restaurant where someone's in their business, it has to look great all the time. And then our other design challenge was it was going to have to produce quality greens and herbs. And so I don't try to sell them. I let them know there's options. I think with the hydroponics, you can get things up and running. There's a little less complication. And I think there's definitely places you might not have room for a fish tank, and yet you can still install a green wall, especially some of the new systems that Bright Agritech's come out with, some very nice modular wall systems with the built-in top-off tanks. It could be much simpler, and I would certainly recommend that in the right situation. Does that help with your question?
Yes, absolutely.